Well, I'm one of my driving motivations here tonight is to make sure that I provide value with what I'm hopefully giving you tips on things on how to be able to create a value proposition. And when you have to sell yourself, that's getting down into the dirt and giving you the best tips possible. So with that being said, the best way to sell yourself in voiceover is Fiverr.com. Thank you.
Get him!
No?
He's
No?
fire.
Voices.com? I'm off to a great start, aren't I? I'm going to refer back to this because I'm kind of mapping it out. This has been a while since I've spoken publicly, probably been a couple of years, probably since the last time when you and I met.
Oh, yeah.
When it was about 4 years ago when I did a whole digital conference. You and Chris spoke about voiceover. I think so. And I spoke about doing authentic video. But I'll get into it with an intro. This method is something that I just kind of learned. It's one way to do it. And basically, I'll just kind of do a background as well. If you have any questions, of course, please feel free to ask. My background started back when I was about 19 years old, 20. I've always had an interest in getting into radio when I was a teenager. Did some college radio. Talked to the program director, found out that radio didn't pay well, so I decided to go ahead and do something that did pay well. I decided that getting paid well wasn't all that worth it, so I figured that getting paid well wasn't that important, so into radio I went. Started off at WRKI in Connecticut, I-95, the home of rock and roll. Yeah. If anybody tells you that they're the home of rock and roll, they're wrong. No. We were the home of rock and roll. And we were also Good Times, Great Oldies, B105.5, which I was known on that station as Jimmy Ocean. Yeah. Fat Gilly on the other station. So, with that being said, I got into that just by happenstance. I went to a broadcast school in Hartford, which basically enabled me to get some contacts and feet in the door into radio stations. I paid about $7,000 just to get some contacts and networking. They also taught me how to cut and splice tape. That was back when you used a razor and a wax pencil. And that actually enabled me to get my voice on the air for the first time because eventually they needed some production help. So I would sit and spend my hours and my time after my day job in the production room, the small production room, cutting up tape and voicing spots and everything. And it was a lot of fun and, trying to time the music and splicing everything together, hitting the music, mixing it on the fly into the actual system that they had. The best time was when the whole system went down and we had to go back really old school and play CDs like they used to, because everything was on a hard drive back in the late 90s. Playing CDs off the, and loading them up, stacking your cards, pulling your hours and everything, getting your commercials all set. But basically, I just kind of did some tags for spots, started getting into full-on spots, and that's how I started getting my voice on the air. So at my day job, when I was out sweating in manholes and pulling wire and all that other fun stuff in 105-degree weather when I was an electrician, I would hear my voice come on the radio, and man, that was just a heck of a feeling. It was awesome. So basically, moving on from there, there came the time where I had a good friend of mine who was the night guy, the program director, the boss of the station. He did afternoons, and he basically, whenever his wife got a hangnail, he would find an excuse to pull the night guy off and do his shift, and the program director would go home to go tend to his wife's hangnail. It's funny because he's actually one of my biggest influences I've ever had, but we kind of gave him crap about that. But they needed somebody to fill in for the night shift one day, and the typical guy, the normal guy, the part-timer, they couldn't get a hold of him. So it literally came down to, well, who's in the building? These things do happen all the time in radio. Who's left in the building? So my buddy, who's now one of my best friends, comes in and he says, hey, you want to be on the air? And I'm like, yeah, sure, eventually. He goes, no, now. Okay. So that night was my first night on the air on a 50,000-watt stick, talking to hundreds of thousands of people in the greater New York, Danbury, Connecticut area, and Brewster. And from there on, I actually became a regular staple as the night person and fill in on and stuff like that. It was the most boring job I think I could ever have. reading liner cards, back-selling Led Zeppelin, and the latest, whatever they had out from Led Zeppelin at that point. They basically went from, I just had more of a passion in the production room. I started cutting my teeth with more and more spots, and then that led to radio imaging, which if you hear anything that's on the radio, you hear the stuff between the songs. All the zips, zaps, explosions. Back in the day with active rock radio, it was a lot more intense. There was actual awards and everything given away for people who produced imaging for radio stations. And of course, the voice guys who did all that were paid very highly to do so. And I worked with a lot of those types of guys. So that took me from 1997 to 2001. Just cutting my teeth, learning how to process my voice, and learning all those aspects, and even coaching, bringing customers in, clients that would actually read their scripts and everything, and getting their voiceovers down and trying to finesse it into a actual bearable radio spot. Decided to get out of Connecticut, and Las Vegas came calling with CBS Radio. I worked for KXMT and KSFN, two talk radio stations in Las Vegas from 01 to 05. That's where my experience really did kind of do the hockey stick. It really ramped up because I surrounded myself with a lot of people who really were just legends in their field, guys I read about in trade magazines and such. Learned a lot more about processing. Worked very closely with one of the voice guys for our stations. His name was Sam O'Neill. Tragically, he died in 06 of cancer, but he was one of the biggest mentors to me as far as business goes and how to find my own voice, which, 18 years later, I don't have your typical voiceover voice, I don't think. A lot of people say, hey, you sound like you should be on the radio. I say, thank you very much, but I don't believe. I just have my own voice. It either works or it doesn't. That's how I position it in this day and age. I do more of a conversational read. Occasionally I can get down and do the movie trailer read if need be, or some sort of an imaging voiceover. But Sam was always that consummate gargle with razor blades type of voiceover. And it was really cool because I was able to work and have beers with the guy and talk about different things about voiceover with him. And he had an amazing career. He voiced several different documentaries on Discovery Channel and the Learning Channel and all sorts of different things. He probably had about 60 different radio stations that he voiced, maybe about 40 or 50 TV stations, just an incredible guy. 2005, my wife and I decided we were tired of the desert. We wanted to focus our sights back on the East Coast, but she wanted to shy away from Connecticut, as I said before. Connecticut, Tennessee, anybody here from Connecticut before I say this? Or the Northeast?
My wife was.
Okay. Basically, Connecticut was, Tennessee reminds us a lot of Connecticut, except without the jerks and taxes. So it's really quite the culture shock. So we wanted to get out of Vegas, move back to the East Coast. I always felt like there was a home for me in the South, so we looked at Raleigh, Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville. WJXA and WCJK, which was actually the oldies station at the time, that popped up out of nowhere, and they needed a creative writer, which actually turned out to be more of a creative imaging production, multitude of hats type of position, and I held that position for 8.5 years at Mix 92.9 and Jack FM, doing all their commercial work and everything. But actually, hearkening back to I-95 days, one of the things that kind of steered my career in voiceover was my program director, the guy who always used to go home because his wife's hangnail. He once told me, and this is what really early on shaped my voiceover career. He says there's two types of voiceover people. There are the voice actors, the people who really want to get that human touch, that conversational touch in their approach. And then you got the radio guys who do voiceover. And that, for a while there, I was the radio guy who just had, oh yeah, I can do voiceover, and everything sounded like this. And I was puking everything out, and everything was, all the car dealer spots that I do. But he says, if you can sound like you're just talking to somebody, work on that and separate the two. But anyway, after Mix 92.9 and Jack FM, I kind of hit, I was at the top of my pay scale, and, having a wife, house, 3 kids, kind of had to figure out other ways to make money. And I had some side businesses that I did some video for, a lot of voiceover work on the side that I had gained over the years for different clients that I've had. But I'd always had, believe it or not, some people like to admit this and some people shy away from it, but I've always had an interest in selling cars, believe it or not. And one of the dealerships that I worked with on a regular basis at Nashville was Crest Honda. Now, Steve Brink was the general manager of Crest Honda from, I believe, 2006 up until about 2013. And he was one of the most, if you ever needed a guy who sounded like John Madden on a commercial, he was it. He was, hey buddy, I'll tell you all the time, it's how I sound. You know, he just had this big, larger than life personality, which was what made him a success in the car business. That's how he's able to do so well. And he was general manager of the dealership now. He always told me that during the 7 years I worked there, if you ever want to come on board and try selling cars, you can make X amount of dollars north of that, you know, and all that stuff. And finally I said, sure, why not? So that started my time in the car business, and that's where we're getting to in terms of this. Now, up until then, I always thought I was a pretty good salesman. I actually was really good at getting in front of clients for video, for any of the creative things that I would do, and just kind of, you know, mishmash my way through a presentation of sorts, and maybe get lucky enough to actually get somebody who wanted to buy from me. I thought I knew how to sell, but I didn't know how to sell until I actually got into this business, into the car business. I'm no longer in it, but what I did take from it was the ability to have a process as far as how to sell something. Now, when it comes to selling a car, or anything for that matter, there really is a process. There's a road to the sale. Now, again, this is not a one surefire way. This is a definite technique, a process to help you move your client along. Now, in voiceover, a lot of your clients are going to come from agencies. You're going to get some emails, some different production houses looking for guys. Their rates are already going to be set. This is a technique for somebody who, I think we've all got them, has hit you up on rate, first and foremost. You get emailed, or you get a phone call, they get referral. Well, how much do you charge? How many has gotten that email? Okay, what is your rate? Does anybody else in here do things other than voiceover that's in a creative space? Like photography, videography, anything like that? Okay. Basically, when somebody hits you up for rate, that's in the car business, that is where I would always default to, well, first off, let me start from this. This is a nice, I just kind of wrote this up. This spells out the steps to the sale. First and foremost, the meet and greet. Now, I worked for Honda for 7 months, and that's when I really learned a lot of different closing techniques, different ways to lead the customer along because basically in that business, you've got pretty much one shot to make the sale. And when you are making your living and putting food on the table, you got to try and get them right then and there. Now, I'm not saying you have to be that way in a creative arts type of setting. This, again, is just a kind of a guideline. When I moved to Mercedes-Benz, I was with Mercedes for 1.5 years. That's when it really started to get honed for me, was because I was dealing with a different kind of customer, and you really had to adapt yourself to their personality and everything and kind of think on the fly. It all started with the meet and greet. Now, in the car business, your customer walks into your dealership, your world. You know, how do you greet them? At Mercedes-Benz, it was, welcome to Mercedes-Benz in Nashville. My name is Jim McCarthy. How can I help you today? Simple. Try and say it with a smile in your voice. For somebody in the creative arts or anybody who's doing voiceover, video, photography, it could be as simple as a return email, but better yet, if you can get them on the phone. Now, what are we all trained to do in terms of a voiceover? When you say the client's name, something that you remind me of the last time, smile when you say the actual name. It makes a huge difference. Now, if there's some sort of way that you posture when you answer your phone, maybe it kind of sets you up. It sets up your business. That's the first impression of your business. I would certainly recommend working on something like that if you don't already have one. It's your first impression, and that will make an impression. What would you do or say to set yourself apart and make them remember you? This is also the time where if they start hitting you up for rate in an email or on a phone call, you want to try and get a time to get together. Now, notice in here, I put it in quotes. Now, one of the things I learned in the car business, you don't want to make an appointment, because friends don't make appointments. Friends get together. Okay? When can we get together? Okay, I understand you want to know my rate, but I need to know more about you. What kind of project are you doing? What do you want to get out of this? Am I the right fit? When can we meet? And I would always go for an odd time, especially in the car business. I would go for, you know what? I want to know the best price in this car. Okay, well, we were a one price kind of car shop, and our prices were really good. And they would always say, what's your best price? And my immediate question back was, well, have you driven it yet? Well, no. Well, why talk about price if you don't even know what it is, if you haven't driven it, you haven't felt how it feels, if you even like it? When can you get here? When can we get together? I have tomorrow open at 2:15, not 2 o'clock, not 2:30, 2:15, 2:20, 2:25. What does that do in your mind? There's a perception when you say those types of times. It makes a commitment. It makes them, okay, your time, my time as a salesperson is finite, okay? So if all of a sudden they have a 2:15 appointment with me, there's a better chance they're gonna hit that time rather than 2 o'clock, because 2 o'clock's kind of wishy-washy, maybe 2-ish, 2:15, 2:10, 2:20, any of those types of times. Great tactic, and it worked every single time for me. Fact-finding, uncovering. Now in the car business, the next thing is you're basically, the way I did it was always transparent. I would say, what is it that you're looking for? Station wagon, an SUV, what color? Are you looking for all-wheel drive? Are you looking for leather versus cloth? Well, Mercedes, it was MB Tex or upgraded leather. But, and finding the right car that they would want to try and drive, or what is it they were trying to get accomplished today. And in that time, how long have you been looking for a car? What kind of car are they considering? Do you have kids? What do you do on the weekends? Do they have a trade? Are they financing, paying cash? This is your first step to build rapport with the customer, okay? And there's a lot of these different techniques. I'm noticing people's faces are kind of like, I don't know about this. Believe you me, some of these techniques, when I tried them, when I first started working with Honda, they were telling me stuff to do that I was going, you gotta be kidding me, that works? It works. You wouldn't believe the stuff that I said. If someone did that to me, I would laugh at you. I'm not saying you guys should do this. This is within your own comfort zone kind of stuff. Now where were it? Now for creatives.
It's just creating it as part of your conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even when I was selling, let's say, clothing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the big cue lines was, you never asked them, can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
It was always, how are you doing? Great to see you.
Mm-hmm.
I see you're looking around at the clothes over here. Which one are you looking at in particular?
Mm-hmm.
I know some great ideas with that piece, or something
Yeah.
like that. It was always starting up the conversation rather
Mm-hmm.
than deading it with, I'm helping you, because it was always, no, I'm just looking.
Yeah. Another thing, another great technique is whenever you get somebody on the phone who's trying to hammer you for rate, because the last thing you want to do is, and this is going to sound crude, you don't want to pull your pants down before they do. That's what you want to do, is try and find out what their budget is. When you get them on the phone, and this is kind of, you sparked a thought for me here. I just completely lost it. That happens all the time. I'm getting old.
If they're hammering you for rates.
Hammering you for rate, that'll come back to me. I forgot. Pulling your pants down.
They get you on the phone.
Find their budget.
Finding their budget. I can't, it's all of a sudden, it'll come back to me. Darn it.
Why don't they start this over?
Now, when you're able to meet with your new friend, your new prospective client, this is where you listen to them 80% of the time. Okay? We do it all the time in sessions when you're taking direction. A lot of sales, and I see a lot of salespeople in this day and age, even when I work with them, that sometimes people just talk too much. This is the best way you can actually listen to them, and they tell you exactly how to sell them. This is how that has happened with me over the years. The most important thing you want to accomplish is find out what their budget is before you reveal your rates, if you can. Because once they find out what your budget is, what do you think they might do? Shop you? That's what they did to us. But I would make sure I got them in. Now, if they're adamant about their rates, another way is to use a technique called bracketing, and I've been using this as of late. If they're really adamant about rates, you say, you know what? And I just used it on a video client of mine last Friday. She said, well, what kind of neighborhood we looking at? I said, I've done videos for as little as $500 on up to $5,000. It just depends on what you want to do. When can you get together? We can talk about it. That allows you to kind of get that appointment set, because bracketing is basically saying, look, I've done it as little as X and as much as X. And you get that little bracket, okay? Dang it, I had another fart that just popped out of my head. What's that? I know, right? It wasn't easy when I was 30. But you can't do, in my opinion, if you don't have them on the phone, especially with voiceover, 8 out of 10 times you're not going to be able to really have a face-to-face with them. You're going to have to do it over the phone. And that's when you can really set your value proposition and put it forward. And if you don't have a value proposition, and this is where the last time Christy and I saw each other was at a negotiation seminar. And one of the people spoke up that only proved my suspicions to be correct. He was a painter, he was an artist, and he said, I always get people that want to know how much my paintings are, and I'm afraid to tell them because I'm trying to get a certain amount of money out of my paintings, and they think that they're worth something else. And I said, I instantly raised my hand. I said, well, are you getting in front of him? Are you talking to them? No, it's over email. And what do you say? Well, I tell them how much they are. And then what happens? I never hear from them again. Right. Okay, whenever you have somebody you're trying to sell something you need and you're asking for a significant amount of money for it, you got to get in front of them somehow. Because that's when your value proposition is really going to come to light. That's when you're going to show them what you can do. And this is kind of important, especially with the voiceover industry, the condition that it's in over the past 10, 15 years as home closet studios have sprouted up. I'm guilty. Okay, I've had, my studio off that closet that I had all my stuff in. I had my electronic drums, my production space, and then we had to go and have kids. So that ended up, of course we had to consolidate. That's his room. I now have my closet where I have all self-contained computer and everything in it. I don't know if you've seen my videos I put up on YouTube. That's where I do everything. It sounds just fine. I know what I'm comfortable with as far as rate goes and everything, and I do just okay with it. But when it comes to that, that's what you're competing with. And we we all know that we're valued at some sort of monetary price point. But to going back to that one instance where Christy and I were at this negotiation seminar, he basically said, well, I'm worth this. Not until you prove it to me. That's just the reality. That's the market. Okay, the market will decide if you're worth something. The market is going to decide. And and that's where the value proposition really does come into play. Now in the car business, this is my opportunity to begin building value in the knowledge of my product. With Mercedes, I came into that brand where it was really intimidating. I went from Honda where you had LX, EX, EXL, EXL Navi, EXL Res. That was pretty much it. Maybe the touring models. And you can pretty much just differentiate between all the different trims and the models and stuff. With Mercedes, it was like, that's a lot of options. And then figuring out all the different options and learning them. And then as you got trained over the months, I got really good at doing a walk around, presenting that vehicle like nobody else, and I got proud of it. I started doing videos of my walk arounds, and I started getting really good at just presenting how I could differentiate my car against the Lexus they were gonna go check out, or the BMW, or anything of that nature, the Acura, which never really came up. And eventually I would, get them into the car and then take them on the demo drive, let them feel the car, explain all the different things, and do a feature benefit impact. FBI, write that down. Feature benefit impact. Great technique. Can't believe I forgot to put that in here. Feature benefit impact. Basically, when you come up to a car, let's say it's a Mercedes C-Class C300 2015 model. It's got something called keyless go. Okay, you walk up to the car, there's a sensor in the handle. Pretty much, as long as you have your key on you, it's got a proximity sensor in the key. It senses as soon as you walk up to the car, you put your hand into the handle, it unlocks, open right up, in you go. And you got the push button start on it and everything. You've got brake, and what that allows you to do is keep everything in your pockets. You got some bags of groceries. It's very convenient. Another great feature would be brake hold, which is, God, I'd love to have that on my car. You come to a stoplight, you got your foot on the brake, and all you go is go, shh, and the car holds itself. It's awesome. It is so cool. And then when the light turns green, you hit the gas, brake releases, off you go. Feature, brake hold, benefit, so you can kind of rest and hang out for a little bit. Impact, it makes your drive that much less stressful. So how can you figure out how to work that into your value proposition in terms of presenting a voiceover or some sort of creative art? I would explain why my brand is better fit than the competition, why our facility is the best place to take care of it for servicing, and better yet, how to get referrals. Creatives, this is your time to shine. Who have you created for? Who have you done work for? What did you do? How did they react? Do they keep on coming back to you? How do you work? What is your process? How do you go about, how do you tell your story? Part of that value proposition is telling your story, bringing your story to the table and telling you how you got to where you are right now. That's a great part of your proposition, because all of a sudden, they're starting to see you as not just a rate, they're starting to see you as a human being. We're all, you're just trying to relate to them. And, Mr. Prospect, this is why I think I would be a great fit for this project. That's all you're trying to figure out, and figuring out that value proposition, practicing it in your head and going over and over it. If you can passionately tell someone what is your value and why you're deserving of the price you are about to ask, then great. If not, start figuring that piece of the puzzle out. That's an integral part of the step to the sale. And that's something, and that's probably the biggest component of this whole thing, is getting in front of them, either on the phone or at a coffee shop somewhere at 2:20, 2:15, 2:35, and then figuring out what it is that they're going to be buying from you. The project may not even be up your alley. And if their budget's not right, it really may not be up your alley. And that's the other thing, is that you're pre-qualifying. You find out what their budget is. Great example is how many times in video, and this really works for me in this town because we're flooded with videographers. Everybody with a DSLR camera thinks that they can shoot music videos now. You get somebody who wants to shoot a music video, and you're like, okay, great. Well, what are your rates? I've shot music videos for as little as $1,500 on up to $4,000. Oh, what? That's what I was going to say before. On the phone call, the person asking the question drives the conversation. Anybody who's asking the questions drives the conversation. Okay, so when they, basically, that's one of the biggest things that I was able to be a success in the business. Of course, these things kind of pop into my head as I go along here. Told you I'm a little rusty, so thank you for bearing with me. I hope I'm bringing value to you.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. What's up, buddy?
So, what happens when the person that is discussing the rate with you is not the decision maker?
That can be accomplished with.
But that happens a lot where it's a middleman production house that's shopping around for talent on behalf of the client, so you can make your pitch to this middleman production house, but
Right.
they don't really care. They just want to get whatever the details are so that they can give it to the client, and they might not know enough about even what the project is to really respond to a million questions if you're trying to.
The one way I would try and find a way around that is to, maybe find out who the decision maker would be, and also, am I the only person you've talked to today? And maybe even see what kind of, what other neighborhood. Again, it's, if they're not telling you what their budget is, it could be a red flag, but I would still continue with it because it's at least practice on how to do your value proposition. And finding out exactly, asking questions.
Asking the question drives the conversation.
Right.
That's a great quote.
Coming back and asking a question of, well, what is it? What are they looking to do? Well, they're looking to do blah, blah, blah. If they're looking to do a 4-minute read on something, or something for whatever project, where's it airing? It's going to be in the local DMA, on radio or television. That's
Well, I mean, yeah, that's like how I would go about making my quote, but like, I guess I don't know what I'm asking.
Here, we'll fast forward to the posturing part, and this is what I do a lot in video as well. I always tell people, well, if you want to know rate, anytime that we have a completed project, the average price in Nashville is anywhere from $800 to $1,000 per completed minute. Now, thankfully, I don't have the same overhead as most studios, so I'm going to be probably a lot better than that. That's a way to get around it and let them know that at least the posture's here. Here's what you can probably expect from most people, depending on what it is, what service it is. And if you know what the averages are, that's where you can posture. That's where your MSRP is, and then your selling price is somewhere in there.
Do that, and then frequently you still just never hear back.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Honestly,
again.
most of the time you're not going to hear back anyway.
Yeah,
But-
unfortunately it's got to be with the decision maker,
Yeah.
and it's a technique that you can try. It's not going to work. It's not going to be ironclad every single time. Trust me. I mean, you basically the batting average for selling a car was 1 out of every 4 or 5 customers. and that was just a numbers game, getting in front of about 4 or 5 customers, and you'd sell a car. With the voice,
40 or 50 for voiceover.
yeah, but again, that can also tie back to what it is that you're doing for your marketing. Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have an Instagram channel? Do you have an updated website? Are you blogging? Those are other little value pieces that you can send. That can be part of your value proposition. Okay, not only am I a voiceover artist, I'm also an authoritative voiceover artist who coaches other voiceover people, who knows the industry. How long have you been doing voiceovers?
Full time, 2 years.
2 years? Other than that, completely?
5 or 6.
5 or 6 years? So basically, you're looking at, 5 or 6 years of experience, maybe talking about, are you looking for somebody who's worked for some bigger clients? That's a question you can ask. But finding question to ask, because basically what you're doing now is selling yourself to that person, that's the middleman, and making enough of an impression on him to now, if you make him a fan and a flaming advocate, he takes your stuff and says, man, I went through a whole bunch of things, but this guy, something about him, we should probably give him a shot. Unfortunately, that's really all you can do in that situation, I would think. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, we do the demo drive. We get to the part where there's the purchase options. Now, if you ever go to buy a car, you go on a demo drive, you're going to be asked if you want to buy the car. If the guy is halfway decent or the girl is halfway decent, they're going to ask you, is there anything I can do for you today? Generally, they'll probably just say, well, no, okay. But there's a way to get around that as well. Before I went into purchase options, I would go into a trial close. We come out of the car. Obvious question. Well, how'd you like it? Oh, it was great. You like the way it drove? Yeah, drove great. Did you like the color? Mm-hmm. Interior feels well? Yeah. You like the way it parked itself when we switched and you got into the driver's seat and we took a drive up 65? Yeah, that was awesome. What kind of questions am I asking? Positive response questions. And what am I doing?
You're getting them to say yes or no.
I'm nodding. That was one technique when I got into the car business. The nodding part is powerful. How many times would I sit there across the table with a prospect and be doing this the whole time? Because you know what they do in return? They nod back. Okay? It's the first time I heard about that tactic, I was like, you got to be kidding me. And the guy's like, try it. Okay, so my first car, I get in front of him, be like, here's your purchase options. And it was one time he was telling me, one of the guys who trained me, he says, I did that. He says, when I put my purchase options forward, one of the things you do is you go over all the different options. Hey, sir, here's we go. Here's your MSRP. Here's our discounted selling price. Here's a 60-month option, a 72-month option. We've worked up some leasing options over here. If you want to buy the car outright, here's what your out-the-door number is. Shh. Next person to speak loses. And he says, I probably did this after I presented my numbers. I probably sat there for about 10 minutes. And the customer looked down, looked up at me, and he says probably about minute 5 inside I was going, and it's some really funny stuff. It really comes down to psychology.
It works even if you're on a phone call to be nodding because
Nodding.
it's for your own confidence.
Yeah, and smiling. Trial closes, use to gauge if the prospect is ready to buy or at least see some purchase options. It allowed me to find out if they had any early objections. Well, maybe this, and it allows you, because before you get too far, maybe it's not the right car, maybe it's not the right item or project. It allows you to, uncover those different objections and move forward from there. With time and practice, I was able to get better at overcoming objections to the point where I knew right then and there if I was selling a car. I got to the point where if I met somebody on the lot, I knew I was selling them a car. It's just, you do it enough and you just get that feeling about it. I mean, there are points where people would walk on the lot, you'd see how they walked, how they parked their car, and start talking to them.
What do you mean by how they park their car?
there was certain spots that they would park if they were ready and hot. It was like, it's hard to explain. They would park on the far side of the lot if they were just looking. And you could tell by their body language, when they get out. They're kind of sheepishly getting out. They're looking around. They're looking at all the different cars. You know by the body language and by the walk that they're not there yet. They're in research mode. But once they pull into a spot and they get out and they're, especially if they've got like a wallet in their hands, oh yeah. Laser focus. So basically the trial close is a great way to figure out if your client is even ready to do business, if they're ready to move forward. When I got my first pencil together, that's what they call it in the business, from the desk or sales tower. That was when I meticulously went over the purchase options. I would point out that the car's MSRP was significantly higher than our asking price. I would point out where their taxes, like licensing and dock fees, what were their taxes? I would present 48, 60, and 72-month purchase options, a cash purchase option, and 2 to 3 leasing options. Close was simple. Circle which option works best for you. And don't speak because the next one to speak loses. Smiley face. Creative. Your posture, your MSRP. Like I said before, when I sold video and I get in front of people to do video, I've done my value proposition, I'm setting that up, and then I go right to, are you ready? Is this something that you're willing to do? When are you thinking of shooting this project? That's another trial close. Is there anybody else that you've talked to besides me? Nice little trial close question. And to kind of feel them out for that. Who is your competition? Who are you up against? Your MSRP is your posture, like I said. Per completed minute of average video in Nashville is around anywhere from $800 to $1,000 a minute. That's what guys right around this area are kind of charging. Lucky for you is that I don't have the overhead of a typical studio. I shoot in the front room of my house, and as you can see from the different videos I've done, I do a great job. What is your budget? What are you looking to spend? And that's when you kind of get out of them. I know it's whenever I'd get somebody who's in a music video, they would come out and you pre-qualify them. They'd be around $300 to $500, and instantly right then and there, okay, you get me for a half a day. Because it always comes down to, at least for me, time versus money. And then a lot of video guys that I work with on a consulting basis, that's the one thing they're learning to overcome is getting the appointment and going forward with pre-qualifying and making sure that at least the client is in the same ballpark that they are. Because I tell them all the time, you're not going to survive as a business if you're just giving away your products for hundreds of dollars, especially video, because video is just a monster to try and shoot and put together and everything. Sorry, my voice is going. Let's see. So what your service normally costs or what the market is currently bearing for a service. A bracket is a range of costs. So I talked about bracketing. This is where you need to know with how much money you'll be happy to do the project and not resent your client. Because if you do a good job by your client, it's easier to ask them for referrals. Okay, no matter what you're selling. Again, with voiceovers, this is kind of tough because you have somebody on the phone that's doing it. That's why it's even more important to create that rapport and do your value proposition over the phone and get all that done. What is your number? What are you going to be happy with to do the project? If it's a 4-minute read, how long is it going to take you? There's going to be times where you're going to be offered $25 to do a 15-second tag. How many have been in that position? Anyone? I've been there. Okay. Depends on your situation. What are you willing to work for? What's your attitude towards it? And if you're going to work with this person, will they bring you other people to the table? That's other things you got to look at. It may be really low to work for $25 for a 15-second tag, but how much time does it really take you to make $25? That's the way I would look at it. I would say, you know what? It takes me 5 minutes to make $25. If I'm a greeter at Walmart, how much am I making? Right. And so it all matters. How much time can I get this done? Hey, you know what? Great. I made $25 in 5 minutes. Do the math on that. That's just going to happen more. And it also allows you, if you do a great job and you give them several different takes on the read, it also allows you to come back and ask for referrals. Hey guys, is there anyone you know who you might think could use a voiceover on their phone system or a project or a 60-second read or anybody you know in radio or anything like that. So it just matters. If they grind you for an hour's worth of time for $25, then no, it's probably not worth your time. But if they're okay with you just ripping something and reading it off and sending it off, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, that's probably contrary to what you're hearing in the different voiceover industry, but I just think that if there's opportunity to be had with moving on to different clients and things of that nature, through that one client who just only has $25 for a 15-second tag or whatever, maybe that's the way to actually, maybe there's a way to kind of make, lemonade out of lemons. Car business, commitment time. Find out what works best for the customer to make the deal happen now, not today, now. Even if you have to take a partial payment for the car to be delivered at a later time. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, the 60-month option looks great. That's what I really want to do, but it's a little bit, $485 a month is a little high for me. Well, what is high? I'd probably be able to do $475 a month. Okay. $475? Yeah. So what you're telling me here is if I can get you $475 a month, we've got a deal right now? The head nod. That's what I'm telling you. I'll see what I can do. Come in. He's in at $475 a month. What do you want to do? Close him. All right. Congratulations, you just bought a car.
Thank you.
It can be as simple as that. For creatives, after agreeing on a price that works best and is a value to both parties, again, it's got to be a value to both parties. You've got to be happy with making however much for the time that it takes to do the project. And it's not. I don't think it's a matter of devaluing what you do. If you see it as a value in your mind, no matter what it is. I mean, I've done in certain areas of life where I struggled to do a $3 read, I did it. Because when you got a mortgage to pay, and you got children to feed, you do what you got to do. And that's a client that just came forth. This is my rate. Take it or leave it. All right. But those $3 reads turned into $2,000 a month paychecks for maybe a half day's of work on a Saturday. So it depends on how you look at it. But anyway, I'm getting off tangent here. Ask for a partial payment, set a date for the next get-together, shoot, session, final delivery of the project, etc. Transaction and follow-up. At Mercedes, I was hashtag driven to delight. That was the big thing Mercedes put out last year. They wanted to make sure all their customers were delighted. That's the key. That's part of the value proposition. Be driven to delight. Why are you worth the money? Why are you worth the money that you're asking? I was proud to represent the Mercedes-Benz brand, and I knew my product just about inside and out. It was my chance to further share my passion with my customers on the car they just bought from me. It also strengthened the relationship and gave them the confidence to refer me to their friends and family. So any sort of creative outlet that you may have, this is probably a decent sales process to kind of put in place. Did you get any sort of value out of it at all, or did you learn anything?
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Is there anybody have any questions at all? I'm kind of running out of steam. Go right ahead.
I have a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to where you're talking about your rates,
Mm-hmm.
is there kind of like, I mean, like for me personally, like I just don't like to talk about money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've never had a car payment before in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people like I pay for cash,
Mhm.
everything, like everything's on a budget. And I just don't like to talk about money. And
It's very uncomfortable.
And yeah, and I don't like to haggle over money if
Mhm.
I kind of fumble
Mhm.
when that part of the conversation happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like the word rate,
Mm-hmm.
it seems harsh. Is there, I mean, what do you, like your fees, your services, what are some euphemisms?
What I normally charge. What's that?
Fees and services.
Yeah.
You said them.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Kind of a softer
Or you
way
can
to say it.
phrase it like, well, other clients that have done similar projects have paid me something around this amount.
Mm-hmm.
a little.
Well, I mean, is that-
It also establishes an expectation.
From the salesperson's, like you presenting yourself to somebody else?
Yes, or when they say, well, how much, send me the invoice, how much are you gonna charge us for this?
Mhm.
I mean, I guess I never thought to just ask like, well, what's your budget?
Right. What are you thinking of spending? It's literally asking, well, how much you got?
Yeah,
How much do you charge? Well, how much you got? What are you thinking of spending?
yeah, that's probably like the best
You know?
way to ask,
Mhm.
instead of like, well, here, let me tell you what my rate card is,
Mhm.
what is your budget? That's the best.
Because then at least in your mind, if you know what you do and not well enough,
Yeah,
you're going to go ahead and be able to say, well, I know this project should take me about 30 minutes to voice, so is X amount of dollars worth my time?
right.
And then there's the flip side of that coin. You know where they are. Can you get them up a little bit to more of a place where you need to be? Well, posturing, the MSRP. Usually I do a project like this for right around here. But you know what? After talking to you and building a rapport, doing a value proposition, finding out and listening 80% of the time of what it is that you want to do, I really like your project. I normally do something like this for X amount of dollars. Could we go ahead and make it happen for $700? And I think I got to talk. But I think we can make that happen. Terrific. You want to go ahead and leave a partial payment right now? We can book the next time to get together and make a session.
Time we get together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all of a sudden, you've got a date. That's what I did last Friday with a video client. She asked me about 2 different videos. I know exactly what I would charge for the one video because it was a simple thing for me. The other one involved a lot more time. She was bringing more people in, involved some B-roll of an event and such, and other titling and stuff like that. Things that would take me more time. Again, time versus money. What am I willing to do it for? And because I've done it so long, I knew where my comfort zone was. I knew probably I'd be around the $2,000 mark. And I said, you know what? Considering that she already prefaced by saying, I have somebody else for you. I'm bringing a referral to the table in addition to what I want to do. I used that because all of a sudden my MSRP, I knew in my mind was $2,000. Normally I told her, I said, you're looking at probably a 4-minute video. She's like, $4,000 is way too much for me. I'm like, well, that's the good news is the fact that, I'm not going to charge you $4,000. I'm telling you what the market will bear with a video like this. But because I don't have the overhead and because I have all these different value components I'm bringing to the table, I can probably do it for around $2,000. Does that sound reasonable?
No.
Yeah, it does sound reasonable. And then I took it further because I get soft. I said, you know what? You're bringing a referral to the table. I'll do both for you for $1,800. And she said, well, $1,800. I think I could make that happen. In my mind, I was like, I don't want you to try and make it happen. I want you to feel really comfortable with this. Why don't I throw you a package deal, $1,600? How does that sound? Awesome, great. $1,600 is fine with me. Could I have made $400 extra? Yeah, but I didn't. I figured this person is probably someone I can tap into because all of a sudden they're going to be a raving advocate of me because of what I've done, and they're probably going to help me spread my seed. That's a part of your marketing. Help me help you. If you try and...
Here's the other thing about asking what their budget is. You have no idea what your budget is. So if they say, what's your rate, and you say, for 1 to 3 minute video, it's $250, but their rate was $350, you just screwed yourself out $100 and didn't even know it. You're going, woohoo, we got a bargain. But you could have made another $100. So
Yep.
if you always ask that question first, if they come to you and say, well, we've only got $50, and you're like, okay, I'm at $250 and they're $50, you have to find a way to get them up.
Yeah.
And give their value to build you up.
Yeah.
You're never gonna get to $250 if they started at $50, but you might get to $125 or $150, and you may look at your time and say, yeah, that's only gonna take me 30 minutes, I'll make $125 for 30 minutes, perfect, but asking that question first is always the first thing you should do. Especially if you don't like talking about money, that puts the onus on them. They then talk money first. They're the first one to throw out a price.
Yep. It's
So
who pulls their
you're not-
pants down
you're not
first.
talking about it, they are.
That's what it comes down to.
And if it's maybe a project that you're not sure how to quote a rate,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
all the more reason you want them to be the ones to say what the budget is, because like there was a large video game project. Some of you guys actually worked with me on, and I had no clue how to quote it because it was a million in these tiny little like 6-second audio bits. And so they asked me what my rate was, and I, oh well, it's pretty complicated. There's all this cash that's going to have happen. What are you guys looking at for this part of the production? And the number he came back with was 3 times what I thought I was going to quote. And then when I said, yeah, and then he asked, is that fair? And I said, well, because of X and X and X, I was thinking more like 4 times. So, and he said, okay, great.
And meanwhile, in your head, you're going, holy crap!
I did the happy dance for like 20 minutes. So,
But you did the right thing.
Yeah, but
you
if I
didn't.
had just talked
Your
about
reaction coming back from that would be like, yeah, okay.
So don't undersell yourself,
Yeah.
especially if you don't know like what the number should be.
But the thing is, what I found about the creative community in general, they just have no idea how to sell themselves. None. I didn't. And that's until I was actually in the business, and it's a school of hard knocks type of business. If you want to learn how to sell, that's a great business to be in. It'll turn you upside down 1,200 times to Sunday, Well, CarMax isn't, they're kind of one price shopping. No haggle. I work for a no haggle shop too, but they still haggle with us.
But you're
Even
still
though-
making the sale.
Yeah.
They know what the price is. They can look at it, they can read that says $2,300. It doesn't matter. It's still selling the features
Yeah.
and benefits of that car.
And
It
you.
doesn't matter.
The whole process was sell you, sell the dealership, sell the car. Because you're the one they're really buying,
Yeah.
And ultimately that's, go ahead.
This is kind of like, not about the price, money,
Uh-huh.
budget, whatever. This is kind of a two-part question. It's about, after you have completed the work for your clients,
Mhm.
and you have this idea because they told you, yeah, we're gonna give you more work, and then it's been like a couple weeks.
Mhm.
How do you,
Follow up?
how do you follow up, like, what are some open-ended positive questions to ask?
Sup? That's how we wrapped our arms around our customers with Mercedes because, they buy a car, they don't want to hear from you. It's my job, if I want to get referrals, to reach out to them maybe once. And we had you guys, does anybody use a CRM, customer relation management tool or anything? Where it schedules, basically, you can set up a daily task and planner. With all your different clients, you can set up little touch points and go ahead and touch them every now and then and to say, hey, I was thinking about you, just wanted to reach out and say hello, see how you're doing, how did the project go? Is there anything I can do for you? Do you know anybody who might be looking for a voiceover?
Okay.
Literally it was, in that case, it was, call somebody up, hey, how's the car doing? Well, it's this, and then, at that point, well, it's kind of making a knock. Well, bring it into service. Let's take a look at it and see what's wrong. Because then all of a sudden, there's more value to you. They're your customer. You own them. You wrap your arms around them because they provide your livelihood. Especially when. Go ahead.
How about subbing that out to a virtual assistant?
What's that?
If you sub that, how you sub that out to a virtual assistant,
A virtual assistant?
does that make it appear?
You're in a personality-driven business.
I know.
You know?
Because I want to, like you said, the constant touch stuff. I got time constraints, so I'm not.
Right.
You spend hours a week.
I think we're at a time.
If they're you.
That's up to you. If you.
No, I mean, you can get somebody to do the calling, so then it looks like you have an assistant. I mean, you're so busy, you're so.
There's a perception to that, but I mean, if
So
you.
that's what I wonder, is that perception valid or is it not?
Well, what do you think? If you had somebody who you were buying a major product from, maybe you were working with, I don't know, just let's say Sylvester Stallone. Okay, I don't know why I just thought of Sylvester Stallone. Okay, would you want to hear from his assistant or would you want to hear from Sylvester?
Because you thought Craig was walking up to you to beat the crap out of you.
That looked like a man on a mission, didn't he?
I would. My perception is that if you value me as a customer more, if you take the time out to call me. That's just my take on it, and I think ultimately in the long run it builds more value for your personal brand. Because believe it or not,
Do you have a
whether
lot of clients or overnight clients? You've probably already been doing that.
yeah.
Because they say,
Well, it's still,
so
it's
why not
not,
continue to do that with the people?
same kind of deal with the emails too. Like if you're, I always try to just write individual emails, even though it's a huge pain, rather than doing like a really impersonal MailChimp or like email blasts out to people, because I feel like everybody's inbox is so cluttered, they don't care unless it's a direct correspondence from you.
It's a way to get around what they call Broca's area of the brain.
Say it again?
Broca's area of the brain. This is a technique I used in radio all the time. I called them look at your radio moments. When I sat down and wrote copy, the first line, the opening line, was a look at your radio moment. I would try and get their attention. They're driving along. I wanted them to do this.
So you caused a lot of accidents.
Right. I'd basically put like a police siren sound effect in it. No. But I mean, a sentence out of left field, what's a way, those types of personalized emails, video, just take 10 seconds. Hey man, I just want to reach out to you, blah, 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 blah.
That's a good idea.
It's a great, I did that the other day for another video project. I said, I did a 10, hey guys, thanks for reaching out. Just want to, make sure that I'm going to get my quote to you, blah, 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 blah. When's a great time we can get together? And
Sam here just did one, it's really brilliant.
the fact of the matter is, and also, like I passed around here, if I brought value to this at all, please follow, subscribe, like. I forgot to put my YouTube channel on there for some reason, but that's linkable from my website. And basically, just ask them to follow you. That's another way to keep your arms around them.
Another thing is to ask for a referral. Like, asking for a quote on the website. Wait 3 or 4 weeks, maybe if they've sent you the video or haven't, if it's something that you can actually put on a website or send a link to or whatever. If it's an audiobook or an e-learning thing, it's not for public consumption, you're never gonna get that. But if it is something you can get a copy of, 3 or 4 weeks later, give them enough production time, it may need to be up, whatever. Hey, can I get a link? How is everything going with the video? And then, okay, maybe they send it to you 3 or 4 weeks later. Hey, can I get a quote from my website? Were you happy with my services? I'd love to get a quote. It's just another thing to talk about.
Build value. It should build value in you and why they want to come back or refer you to other clients and everything like that. Because they're going to feel good about referring you out to their friends. It's like any other business. What's that?
You're showing concern for what you did, how they are, that type of thing.
How'd the project go? Is it possible to get a copy of it? I'd love to see it. I'm excited to see how the final turned out. Actually, instead of asking for a copy, you can just say, I'm excited to see how the final product turned out. Because then it's not just your portion of it.
Right.
Because video producers are very territorial. I was one right now. Speaking
Yeah.
from personal experience here, I like to show off my work. If I liked it, I was proud of it, I wanted everyone to see it.
But you know what? And even if you work with somebody locally and you've never met them, show up at their work and just say, hey, I just wanted to meet you.
Box of donuts.
Yeah.
I did that with a customer of mine. I worked with a guy since 2009, I think. I was doing all his commercials for him. And he, I just had the opportunity this past year. I've never met this guy. I've only talked to him via email. And I know he works right there. He owns that business. So I would walk in and be like, hey, is Jeff Brewer here? Yeah, I want to go get him. Hey, Jeff, I'm Jim McCarthy. And he was just like, oh my God, this is the guy who does our radio spot, He thought I was like,
Celebrity.
yeah, Christopher Walken walking in.
So he was scared.
Right. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? It's crazy. Oh, fine. Good to meet you.
Right.
Okay, so I know we're have to be out of here by 8:30, but.
I'm watching the time.
That's not right, it's 7:25.
It's not correct.
Oh, it is?
7:25.
It's only 7:25.
Oh, cool.
That
Right
clock
on.
is wrong, and we have to be out of here by 7:45, we have to wrap up.
Gotcha.
We have about 20 minutes.
So, if there's time, or maybe we could come up with a time later on, if we could role play how to do all this.
We did it all the time.
Okay.
That's how you get better.
Are you volunteering?
Yes, I'm absolutely volunteering.
Yeah.
Well, you guys want to do it now?
Sure.
Anybody have any other questions first? real
Susan's
quick?
volunteered.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm not sure how to phrase it in this context, because you've done a very good job of demonstrating, negotiating prices. So that's part of your close. But a section that, I've done a fair amount of sales in a variety of things, and yes, the whole life in the arts is about selling yourself. But you didn't specifically address dealing with objections and sort of sensing what are false objections versus real objections. And I just wanted your take on that in terms of creative arts or voiceover, because I'm really thinking of another business of mine that has met with a lot of very positive feedback, a lot of great interest, but because of who has to actually press the button and say go, in all of these spots, there are people whose job is to monitor the money and say no. Their job is to say no. And so getting past what I consider to be a false objection, every time they say it's money, I'm like, that's bull. It's not money, it's because you know you need it, you don't want to do it. But everybody's telling you, that works with you, is telling you need to do it. So just, do you have certain techniques that have worked for you for
Like if they,
objections?
if they've, like, is it beyond the objection? Is it they've gone with another person? Maybe bought
No,
elsewhere?
they're just not ready to do this. This is sort of a new concept. So
Okay.
new ideas take time. Anything that disrupts the system is its own thing.
The voiceover, the biggest difference between in this sales process is the fact that selling cars is a short sales cycle. With voiceover, it can be it's a lot longer of a sales cycle. These are just little tactics and everything you can try to basically get that value proposition. But whenever I would get an objection, I got pretty good at finding which ones were the smoke screens and which ones were real objections. Maybe I would just kind of use my common sense. If it was a money issue, well, how much did you think it was going to cost? I had some, we would get people all the time that would come up and be like, well, we'd have one car that was at its bottom. It's been on the lot for over a year. We just need to get rid of this boat anchor and basically look at the price and say, listen, this is this is the price. This is a great price. Here's why. Here's how I can back it up and everything. Well, I'll give you $2,000 off. And I got to the point where I just asked them deadpan, where'd you get that number from? And shut up. Well, that's how much I want to pay. It's like, well, that's how much we want to sell it for. I already told you that you know why you're getting a good deal. But anyway, your question's more about the smokescreen objections? Like which one comes to mind that you had to get around?
Well, I don't want to bore everybody with like the industry itself, but I have a service that I'm providing for touring Broadway and Broadway shows. It's a service that everybody's like, well, we need you. We know we need you. Everyone on the marketing side is like, we need you, we want you, we're trying to get this done. But they know, and I know, because we've been at it for a while, that the producers are loath to pay money because their job is to reduce risk and keep money for their investors, and that's what they want is money. So they don't want to part with it. And so even even the people that are trying to promote me, and there are a pretty good handful, they're all coming up against the same objection, which is money. And it seems very false. It just seems like, no. And there's also a magic number. Like I've learned from some people, they're like, all right, look, they'll tell me, do this for me, price it this way. I know that's as much as I can go back for, so do that or less. And, it's fine. There's sometimes things have worked and sometimes they haven't worked, but this sort of magic number sense that, you can't get past this wall of, it's all about budget. There's somebody else I was working with recently said, I will go back to her, but I heard the word budget a few too many times for the first meeting. I was a little annoyed.
Yeah.
So they're all the marketing people that I work with are really attuned to this issue as well, but they don't know how to get past the hump either.
I think we live in a sell or be sold world. Okay, they're selling you as much as you're selling them. If they're not willing to give up some sort of budgetary, just an iota of an inkling of what it may be, they're trying to get it out of you. I mean, unless you've already given them numbers at this point, you've already given them a rate.
Yeah, there's been several different.
Then you just ask them point blank, what's your budget? Just come at them, completely bold-faced. That's the one thing about sales is that sometimes you got to be bold. Just ask. I mean, literally, and that was one of the things that was one of the closes that I couldn't believe would work. They actually told me it could be as simple as this: do you like the car? Yeah. Can you afford the car? Yeah. Then buy the car. I kid you not. When I was told that, I was like, you got to be, I said, you got to be kidding me. There's no way that works. And he's like, all right, I've been doing this for 20 years. So I had a customer. I went through a dry spell for an entire week. I was ready to pull whatever little hair I had left out. But my wife was wondering how we're going to make the mortgage next month. And one Saturday, I had a customer that came back. And 2 hours, 3 hours later, she talked herself up 2 trim levels, $4,000 more car, $80 more a month in payment. And by this time, we had a good rapport. I knew what she did for side income and everything. And I said, listen, I'm sorry to ask. I don't mean to be rude, but how old are you? I'm 23. Okay. Boyfriend, husband, any prospects? Nope, just by myself. Great. You have, you're making X amount of dollars per month. Your day job is covering everything else. You can conceivably make the payment out of your side income, because that's what I would do. She's like, yeah. I said, there's only one time, a very few times in your life you'll probably be able to do something like this, especially if you're 23. And I said, I heard J.C. Ward, he was our internet lead manager. I could see it, because he was the one who taught it to me, and I could see him in my head. Do you like the car? And I was like, in my head going, I can't believe I'm saying this. She's like, yeah, I like the car. I love the car. You can afford the car. I mean, right? You can make it happen. She's like, yeah. Then buy the car. Okay. And I sat there like, oh my God, yeah. I closed her down right there. And I didn't even mean to. I've used that close over and over. Do you like the car? Yeah. You can afford it? Yeah. Drives nice? Yeah. Then buy it. Okay.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you find that most shoppers or consumers need to be led to make a decision?
They will tell you how to sell them. If you pay attention close enough, they'll tell you how to sell them.
They want permission to spend that much money.
Some people don't like, and that's the thing, is that I've heard it put this way: bringing them to church camp without them knowing they're at church camp. Selling them without they don't even know they're being sold. That's the true art and salesmanship.
And you built a rapport, so they trust you, and
Yeah.
they see you as a friend, and therefore they...
But you want to make sure your trust is genuine. That's the thing about me, is that I wasn't a sleazy. I believed and I cared for my customers. I've been out of Mercedes now since July. I still get customers that call me and leave me messages. I still call them back, because you just never know who they may know. It's good to have people in your life,
Make sure you get a referral fee.
Yeah.
Whoever you send it to.
But and just telling them straight up. I mean, by the time you build that rapport, you could sell them other things when they're at, hey guys, here's what I believe in when you're buying a used car that's not in warranty, that's not certified. Buy a flipping warranty. You just don't know. We can't predict what this car is going to do.
Because you're the expert, and
Right.
they are looking to you for expert
Right.
advice, and so that makes sense.
So if I've decided to give up voiceover to sell Mercedes, how would I go about?
There's a reason why I got out of it.
You'd have to give up that, dude.
Nah, I don't-
Unfortunately,
Have a Chevy, the Chevrolet on the lot, sorry.
Unfortunately, the car business in Nashville, I will say this, that, aside from CarMax, the Sonic automotive dealerships, which are Audi, Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, Mini, Crest Honda, Crest Cadillac, great places to buy a car, because their prices are really good, and they do a really good job when you're buying a used car. They recondition very well. At least we did a great job at Mercedes, because we had to. That was the kind of customer we were appealing to. But I branded myself as McCarthy at Mercedes, and I sold anything. Did videos, marketed the crap out of myself, because that's what I did in radio. But since I've been out of the car business, my marketing prowess has kind of skyrocketed, because I'm just all of a sudden really starting to use the social media aspect of it. How many people are using are optimizing social media for their marketing, or Web 2.0? And I mean optimizing, you're hitting on all fronts. You're doing the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Anybody doing Snapchat? Snapchat's catching on, guys. Get on board. Learn how to use it.
Brandyourself.com.
Mm-hmm.
They'll link all of your social media together, drive you to position one and page one.
Mm-hmm. Like do the like an aggregate type of site? Yeah.
Yeah, it actually works, even the free mode works really well.
Mhm.
I mean, if you start paying more, you can get more links to,
Yep.
to other social media, but just having 3 on there is pretty doggone great.
But
If this and that is a free option as well, that you can create recipes to link them together.
Snap.
It's called If This Then That. So you can have it, if you post on Instagram, it will create a Twitter fix on your Twitter page and just things like that, a bunch of different recipes, and it's free.
Oh, neat.
with photos, I tend to upload natively, because when you post from Instagram to Twitter, it posts as a link. I'd rather it actually be the photo.
If you use If Then That, you can get it
To do it with the photo, I'll have to check that out. See, it's like the technology and everything that's coming out is with such a rapid pace. It's
Yeah, I
tough to
like
keep
it.
up with
I
it.
like That's a great idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does. If you post something on Facebook, sometimes it'll post it to Twitter, but it'll be
Yep.
a tiny URL.
And Twitter's kind of they're kind of a bird with a broken wing right now.
Yeah,
So I mean,
I know. But-
anybody a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk? Anybody listen to him? Write that name down. Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V, V-E-E. He is probably one of the most preeminent minds out there on marketing and angel investing, social media marketing mainly. He was a guy who started out he was always an entrepreneur, started out with his father's liquor business, and he turned it into a place called Wine Library. And he was doing email marketing back when it was even known as, it was before it was known as email marketing. He would literally get email lists together and handwrite emails to thousands of customers and put the time in. And back in the late 90s, that's when he had like a 95% open rate and everything like that. He took a $3 million a year business, and in 5 years, because of email marketing and the internet, selling wine on the internet, to a $60 million a year business in 5 years. And now he started his own YouTube channel. He started doing this show called WineLibrary.tv. 18 months he went, maybe getting 20, 25 views on each video. He'd put up a video every couple of days just talking about various things of wine. And he would deconstruct the wine in such a way that was so different than typical wine people. If it tasted like, a catcher's mitt with dirt in it, and big league chew, that's how he would describe it. That's just the first initial thoughts that came to mind about different wines. And he became a passionate, articulate guy when the brand when it came to wine. And he built that store up to what it is now. And 18 months after he started doing it, who discovered him was Ellen DeGeneres. So she had him on her show, and his brand, his personal brand. That's another thing. Personal branding is going to trump corporate branding in the near future.
Back to social media.
Mhm.
Are you maximizing that in your
Trying to.
business chart? Okay.
I basically, I'm of the thought that you can't I don't think you can, and we're not in a day and age where you can truly put your portfolio of skills into one. You can't put all your eggs into one basket, pretty much. I think you need to do a bunch of different things in this day and age as far as being an entrepreneur. I was telling Christy the other day about coaching and everything, and she kind of explained to me, well, I'm kind of, I said, if you can do it, make that another revenue stream. If you're able to coach people and teach people how to do voiceover, and you're good at it, because your personality may mesh with people that may not mesh with Joe's. And that's the other thing is that, what I'm doing is I'm hitting on about 4 different.
You're monetizing all of your.
Trying to.
Sure. Okay. So is it bringing you new clients yet, or is
What
it
I'm-
just branding? Or
What I'm doing is basically, it's a branding effort, and everything's going to take time. Nothing's going to happen overnight. With what I do on YouTube, it's a lot of silly stuff that comes to mind. With Snapchat, I'm doing little videos, 10-second snippet videos that tell a story and that are kind of funny. My wife and I do this thing where you're like, oh, what's he going to tell us about his wife? I just kind of thought it funny one night to do the Shark Tank style handling of a situation. And she's like, hey, why don't you go get me another beer? And I turn the camera on myself and be like, well, I kind of went out and bought the beer tonight, and for those reasons, I'm out. And I turn around, and she just kind of looks at me like, so those little, I just kind of just use it in my own way. But that's just a branding technique, because I think we're in an age where your brand can mean several different things. It's more about humanizing in this stage.
what's the girl's name who did the brand for Jeep? The Jeep girl.
Kelly Butler.
Are you familiar with this?
What's that?
Voiceover artist Kelly Buttrick?
Yeah, Kelly Buttrick, this is an amazing story for you guys, but first of all, Kelly Buttrick has boatloads of money because she's an extremely good voice actor. So she could do this. She loves Jeep. Jeep is the be-all and end-all of everything in her life. She owns Jeeps, she loves Jeeps. She spent the last year and a half, I think, wasn't it? Year and a half,
Yeah.
almost 2 years, doing nothing but creating a very specific marketing campaign. We're talking video shoots, photographs, specially printed material, an entire social media campaign of nothing but getting to the Jeep people, because she wants to be the voice of Jeep in every aspect there is. Their phone, their e-learning system. Hey, if they could do a commercial, great. She wants to do anything and everything to do with Jeep. And her stuff on social media is amazing. Just to watch her journey is just, it's
She's got a passion.
Yeah, it's massive passion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to the heartbeat passion. It was funny because I was looking at it online and do this for you guys, for yourselves, okay? Kelly's passion is Jeep. Find out what yours is by asking your closest family member. I asked my 10-year-old daughter, you know what she said? Publix. And she's right. I love Publix. I do. But I actually got a job. I used to work for Publix. And the reason I got the job was because they said out of the 192 people on voices.com when I was there, I would never be there again.
Fiverr.
But I did it, yeah. The reason I got the job is because in my post email to them, I said something about the fact that at the time, you know, the only soy milk my daughter will drink is Publix. She won't drink anything else. And I've been a fan of your store since college, and I love Publix. And they said, not only did we like what you wrote, we could tell in your voice that you loved us. You're hired.
That's a great way to get, even just speaking, giving little companies shout outs. I did it for Dollar Shave Club. You know, and just, you know, you tag them on Twitter if they notice, great. If not, you still get views on YouTube. I did it for Lexus of Nashville. I've always heard great things about them. I said, guys, I hear what you're doing on the radio. I could do better. So I wrote them a spot and I produced it and put it up on YouTube.
So you're
It just,
creating content,
yeah.
you pay for that too.
that's the key.
Exactly.
It's creating content.
Right.
I mean, it's tapping in, being self-aware enough to know what your passions are and passions.
Paying out the agent and the ad agencies,
Mm-hmm.
and you're
You're now determining what you're branding you.
right.
Because all of a sudden you're going to have your followers, your audience that is going to follow you. So
Now, Kelly is she is going through the agencies that handle the ad agencies. She spent a long time of cultivating relationships with the people in the ad agencies for Jeep. So she built up a good rapport with those ad agencies over a series of long time to get that feeling. Isn't that what she told us on the panel? Isn't that one of the things she's told us at
Yeah.
So she
Yeah,
positions
boss
herself as a
lady.
competitor, not a
Yeah.
competitor.
Yeah, she friended the people and became a good, a person to, I don't know, she developed a relationship with the ad agents. So then when she came out with all this stuff, she targeted it specifically
Yeah.
to them as well as other people, and it just took off. Because they had already built the relationship, they were willing to open her emails and see what she had sent. If she had just done it cold, they wouldn't have had time for her.
I take it it's a happy ending?
Well,
We don't know yet, she's still,
Oh,
it's still
really?
working, she's still working it.
that's pretty.
They've taken notes.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.